It was Halloween night, the air crisp with the first hints of winter. A group of friends, still high on the thrill of a lively Halloween party, were driving home along a deserted road. The car was filled with laughter and chatter, but an eerie silence seemed to hang in the air outside, adding an unsettling edge to the otherwise fun night. As they drove deeper into the countryside, the moon was their only light, illuminating the winding road ahead with a ghostly glow. The driver, Mark, squinted as he spotted something up ahead. At first, it seemed like a trick of the light, but as they got closer, everyone in the car fell silent. There, standing by the side of the road, was a young woman. She was dressed in an old-fashioned white dress, her long dark hair falling loosely around her pale face. She had one hand raised, her thumb out, asking for a ride. The friends exchanged uncertain glances. It was strange to see someone hitchhiking in the middle of nowhere, especially this late at night. But it was Halloween, and their spirits were still high. "We can't just leave her out here," Sarah, the most compassionate of the group, insisted. "She looks like she needs help." Mark hesitated but eventually pulled over. The woman approached slowly, her movements almost mechanical. As she slid into the back seat next to Sarah, the temperature in the car seemed to drop by several degrees. The group exchanged nervous looks, but no one said anything. "Where are you headed?" Mark asked, trying to sound casual. The woman didn't respond at first. She stared straight ahead, her hands folded neatly in her lap. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just down the road," she said, pointing ahead. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The friends continued their drive, but the atmosphere had shifted. The earlier laughter and excitement had been replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Sarah, sitting closest to the woman, noticed how cold she felt, as if she were sitting next to a block of ice. She tried to make conversation but was met with one-word responses and the same eerie stillness. The group's unease grew as they neared the destination the woman had indicated. After several minutes of driving, she pointed to a small, weathered house off to the side of the road. The house looked old and run down, its windows dark and lifeless. Mark pulled the car to a stop, and the woman stepped out without a word, slowly making her way to the front door. The friends watched as she disappeared inside, her white dress a fleeting blur in the darkness. Once the door shut behind her, Mark sighed, as if releasing the tension that had been building since they picked her up. "That was weird," he muttered. "Really weird," Sarah agreed, rubbing her arms to shake off the lingering cold. As they drove away, the friends tried to shake off the unsettling encounter, but something about it gnawed at them. The woman's icy touch, her emotionless voice, and the abandoned look of the house left them with a sense of dread. The next day, unable to shake the feeling that something wasn't right, Mark decided to return to the house. He couldn't explain why. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was a lingering sense of responsibility for the mysterious woman they had dropped off the night before. Whatever it was, he felt compelled to go back. When he arrived at the house, the daylight revealed even more of its dilapidated state. The paint was peeling, the roof sagged, and the windows were boarded up. It didn't look like anyone had lived there in years. Mark knocked on the door, but there was no answer. He knocked again, louder this time, but the house remained eerily silent. As he turned to leave, an elderly man from a neighboring property approached him. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "I was just wondering about the house," Mark said, glancing back at the boarded-up windows. "My friends and I dropped someone off here last night. A young woman. She said this was her home." The old man's expression shifted from suspicion to something else, something darker. "That can't be," he said, his voice low. "No one's lived in that house for over 20 years. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. "But we dropped her off right here. She went inside." The old man shook his head slowly. "You're not the first ones to say that. Every few years, someone claims they see a young woman hitchhiking on this road, asking to be brought here. She died in a car accident, right on the stretch, back in the 1980s. She was on her way home from a Halloween party, and she never made it. They say she's still trying to get home." Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "What do you mean, she died?" The old man's voice was grave as he continued. "It was a hit and run. She was walking along this road late at night, just like you said, in a white dress. The driver never stopped. They found her body the next morning, not far from here. Since then, people have seen her ghost. She's always looking for a ride, but she never reaches her destination." Mark stood there, frozen in place, the weight of the man's words sinking in. He remembered the woman's cold touch, her vacant stare, and the way she had disappeared into the old, crumbling house. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. They had given a ride to a ghost. He quickly thanked the old man and hurried back to his car, his mind racing. As he drove away, he couldn't shake the image of the woman in the white dress. He told his friends what he had learned, and they were equally horrified. They had all experienced the same unsettling feeling, the same sense that something was terribly wrong, but none of them had expected this. For weeks afterward, the memory of that night haunted them. They couldn't forget the eerie silence in the car, the woman's cold presence, or the way she had vanished into the house. Halloween had always been a fun, carefree night for them, but after that, it took on a much darker meaning. The friends never returned to that road again. And every year, as Halloween approached, they would tell the story of the phantom hitchhiker, the ghost they had unknowingly helped, still trying to find her way home.